Hey guys, Frank here with another episode of Modern Church Leader, coming to you from San Diego and Australia. What part of Australia are you in, Steve?
I'm in Melbourne, Australia.
All the way in Melbourne. So Steve is, man, you're a legend in the kind of church marketing space. We've known each other, right? Kind of in passing throughout the years, and just grateful to have you on the show today.
Oh, look, Frank, so honored to be here. And, big shout out to San Diego. Love it. Like, I was in California for a church communications conference, actually. Yeah. And I didn't get to go to San Diego. And I've just heard of the reputation of San Diego and always wanted to get down there. Because how many hours south is it? It's like 2 hours from LA? From LA,
yeah, 2.5. There could be traffic and take you 6, but 2.5.
Yeah, so we've connected online, and we've kind of become friends online over the last decade.
Yeah,
as you've been at Tightly, and I've been kind of in the church digital ministry space, and it's interesting, like the topic we're kind of talking about today, that we're actually formed that relationship digitally.
Yeah, all digital. I know. And I've only been to Australia twice. So, even hanging out would have been hard. So, hey, by the way, next
time you're here,
next time I'm there, we're definitely hanging out. And next time you're here, even if you're in LA, tell me and we'll work it out here.
That'd be awesome.
Random side note, your background is super cool.
Yeah.
I do a little bit, like, just as a hobby, like as a kid, grew up collecting like sports cards. Mm-hmm. And so there's a card. So me and my kids have gotten into it. They like Pokemon cards and some sport cards and basketball and whatnot. So there's a card, like a style of card called the Color Blast. Mm-hmm. And it's like an image of like iconic players with like that kind of background that you have like on the card. It's super cool. So it reminds me, I feel like LeBron James or Kobe or somebody should be on your wall right now.
Well, hey, you've got the GOATs behind you, so.
Yeah, I know. We were talking a little basketball before this. So, I mean, let's jump in. Like you live square in the kind of like church marketing space, but you're a pastor at a nice church out there in Australia. Why don't you just tell the listeners like your journey into faith and working for a church and kind of how you got into where you are today?
Yeah. So originally I'm from Derby in England. Grew up in an unchurched family, great family, but no real faith. I probably attitudinally called myself an agnostic growing up. And it was really only when I moved to Australia. So I did that typical gap year after uni. And I studied to be a graphic designer way back when graphic design wasn't cool. You didn't have hundreds of thousands of people that had access to the software tools that we do. Yeah, exactly. And so I the one thing I loved at school was art. And so I kind of fell into graphic design, did that, moved to Australia, and then when I was 21, and got stuck here, and then met my wife, who was a Christian, and she just come back from a YWAM DTS, discipleship training school. So where you do kind of like 6 months out.
Yeah. And
I was interested in her. She was a Christian, and she wanted me to come to church with her. I'm like, sure, I'll come to church. I'm kind of not, negative. I'm kind of in that kind of 5 on the Engel scale type thing, if you know what the Engel scale is. And so went to church. Church blew me away. It's actually Crossway, where I'm a pastor of now.
Yeah.
And long story short, I came to faith. And all of the preconceptions that I had about faith and religion were torn down by my experience at Crossway. This Jesus and this stereotype of what church was changed by the reality of what I experienced at Crossway. Yeah. And so there started my kind of spiritual journey, whereas in in this wonderful community that was called a small group, which I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
And they loved me. They let me lead a Bible study when I wasn't even a Christian. And so that meant I had to read the Bible. I think there was a cunning plan in there somewhere. So a wonderful journey of faith. We got married, 3 kids who are now 20, 16 and 14. So a fair while ago.
Yeah.
Got baptized at church, and my small group leader at the time baptized me. And so it's just been this wonderful journey of faith and discovery. Meanwhile, I'm doing well in my career. I'm a graphic designer. Then I've become a kind of a senior designer, leading the studio, dealing with clients. Then I flip into a kind of more of a marketing communication space in the marketplace, leading a studio in this very large comms PR world where we were dealing with celebrities like you've got behind you in Australia, and state, federal governments, really large marketing and communications campaigns. So I was kind of learning by osmosis, kind of the comms side and the PR side of things. And I was doing advertising campaigns, so, TV, radio, print, spending lots of my clients' money on kind of state and national campaigns as well. So kind of getting all of this learning and felt God called me into ministry. And so I become an intern at my church, and fast forward, become the communications director at my church. And then fast forward, this thing called the internet is kind of emerging. And this thing called social media is emerging.
Yeah.
And then I started to get curious about the opportunity for the gospel. And this was kind of in about 2006, 2007, when Facebook was really just emerging, and you could create content where it would literally just keep traveling. Like it would just keep going. And so I became fascinated at the time of what could we do with this vehicle? Like as a steward of the gospel, what is it that we could do? It wasn't enough to, at the time, and again, I realized I was probably really early in the game, but we create picture posts and all kinds of thought-provoking content. So very much the engagement style of content that still works today. And it was reaching 60, 70,000 people a post. And,
wow.
We're a large church, but Facebook at the time was, it wasn't limiting the reach. It wasn't dialing it back with the algorithm. And we would create posts for like St. Patrick's Day, a really simple post where it was like, St. Patrick, Day isn't all about green beer, leprechauns, and four-leaf clovers. It's actually about a man who wanted to transform his country for Jesus. And just a simple post like that would just be seen by 100,000 people. And I'm there in my pajamas creating this post, like early one morning, because I went, it's St. Patrick's Day. This would be a cool post to do. I know a graphic designer, so I create the post, stick it out there. And by the evening, because it's a global event, right? Ireland's woken up. And all of a sudden, it's shared all around Ireland. So I'm kind of going, this is just an incredible opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, the epiphanies are happening all over the place. So, and I'm comms director. So, we're a large church, for Australia, 4,000 people physically in person, multiple languages. But there's this desire that I had was, I want the rest of the world to know the reality of Christianity and who Jesus is, that I get to experience every day. Because I feel like there was and there probably is still that gap of the perception of what religion is or faith is and the reality. Mm-hmm. And that's where I that's kind of was the motivation that I had in my journey into digital ministry. And way back then, there were no churches in Australia that had a communications director like me. I think there's probably one other that came along, which is a well-known church. And but I was reached out to the States to just really get some support and help.
Right.
and this wonderful organization called the Center for Church Communications, otherwise known back then as Church Marketing Sucks.
Yeah.
Really supported me, and you know, just the heart to help resource this strange guy that's called them from Australia. And literally we're on Skype. Like, that's how old it was.
Right.
Having
The OG
chats.
right there.
Yeah, like literally. And so it kind of led into, okay, I'm hearing this thing called online church start to emerge. I'm hearing Life Church started, and then a couple of other churches started. And I just started to check that out. I was going, is this maybe this connection piece that I've been missing that will help people take that next step in terms of experiencing Jesus for themselves? Just like I did way back when I first went along to Crossway and I was taken by my wife. Is this the opportunity? And that kind of sat with me for a couple of years. And then I had a chat with my senior pastor and explained the idea. And Pastor Dale is just the most incredibly generous and flexible in his methods, kind of approach. He's not wedded into the mega church kind of model or the multi-site model. He's whatever we can do to reach people for Jesus.
Right. Yeah.
And so he said, yeah, give me a board paper. Let's have a look at it. So a month later, I'm presenting to the board. This is kind of fast forward a few more years later. And a month later, I got the green light to start our online campus. And all of a sudden,
that was in, what was the year?
2015.
15. Okay. Very cool.
Yeah. So our Facebook presence had grown from basically nothing to like 50,000, just organically through the content that we were creating. And again, Facebook then started to dial that back a little bit. And then video starts to emerge and it's kind of the whole deal. So I started reaching out to the, people like Brandon, and then it became Alan and Jay at the time, and Neil Smith. At the time, he was at Community Bible Church and his team. And really just, guys, what's working and what's not working? How can I learn from you? And then we started our online campus with 8 services. So we went simulated live like Life Church does. And really, we had, I think, about 850 people to that service, or services, those 8 services. And it was kind of just a real mind-opening experience that organically we could reach and have 800 people without really massive promotion who don't attend our church watch our services.
Right.
And at the time, I was also kind of just playing around with some Facebook ads at the time. And I heard about this thing through the Life Church team called the Google Ad Grant. So, and at the time, Google was offering 2 levels of grant, which we can talk about now or later, whatever you want. But really, it kind of started that curiosity of going, well, I'm used to kind of how do we reach people organically? So how do people naturally find out through word of mouth, through that, traditionally in person, it'd be like some sort of postcard invite or a door hanger or TV ad or radio or something like that. But digitally, there's this new way of connecting to people, not just organically, but through this thing called inbound and outbound digital marketing. And so as soon as I started playing with that, our attendance just exploded. And it was like, this thing really works.
When you say attendance, do you mean attendance to the online campus or in person? Got it.
Yeah,
so online campus. So you start doing it however you're doing it back then, right? You have your recording and playing the recorded services online. You get 800. You start doing some marketing to get people to the online campus, Facebook, Google Ads. And you're like, this thing just went off the rails. Just crazy.
We went from there to about 2,500 really quickly.
Yeah.
And it was that moment of going, hold on. And the cool thing about that was that we could measure everything. So we could actually, down to the dollars and cents, to say, this is what it costs for us to get a visitor to the service.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is how long X percentage staying, Y percentage staying, and Z. So we could really quantify the value of that digital outreach.
Yeah.
Versus, the postcards where you're spending X amount and you don't really know how many people are guests unless they, are going to get that free mug at your welcome desk or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit harder to qualify. Still well worth to do, but with digital marketing, even back then, you could really qualify the value.
Let's fast forward to today. So a bunch of years later, like now, post-COVID, post every church on the planet going online, or at least trying to, or deciding not to if they decided not to. But much more going online now versus then. What's different today? What do you notice is the big difference?
Yeah, I certainly think through the pandemic, people's habits have changed. So certainly for the Christian segment, that the habit of attending physical church has changed. And the average person, and again, for some pastors who are listening, you've got to give your people freedom to interact with your church in a way that they feel comfortable doing. So they may have attended pre-pandemic once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks, but actually what they may do now is attend 3 times a month, but some of that will be online and some of that will be in person. But they're still really connected to your church.
Right.
So that's one thing I'm seeing in terms of habit shift. The second shift is that I feel like there's a real spiritual openness to the gospel this side of the pandemic. And people are much more willing to what I call digitally lurk in your online campus and watch a piece of content and versus, because everyone's used to just putting YouTube on their TV or on their laptop and or Facebook and being discovered and finding you because the algorithms are putting your content in front of them. So from a visibility point of view, I think that those churches who are continuing on with their digital ministry efforts are going to continue to see fruit out of that. So I just encourage everybody to really just embrace the long-term journey of what that looks like for your church, no matter what size you are. Like you don't have to be a larger church like Crossway. You can be a local church. And the reality is if I poke around your YouTube studio enough, I can probably tell you that you have 50% of your online guests are new. And so again, how we think about online ministry is that actually there are a lot of people checking your church out, and you probably don't even know it.
Yeah.
And Google Analytics will back that up. A lot of the churches that I do work with, I do coaching and consulting with churches, and 70% of people that visit most church websites are first-time visitors.
Right. So you mentioned the Google ad. Let's jump into that kind of thing, because I think, that the Google ad or Google Ads and the Google Ad Grant for nonprofits are really interesting, and it's essentially free money, but you got to know what you're doing or have somebody who knows what you're doing. But I mean, talk to us a little bit about that. Like, what is a Google ad? What's the Google Ad Grant? What do you see churches doing to use Google to drive, traffic to their online service or maybe even their in-person service? Yeah,
well, so it works for both. And the reality is that if your church is not in the top 3 search results in a search engine, then you're basically fighting for 10% of search traffic. That's Google's own research backs that up. That basically from below the fold onwards, or if you're out of that top 3, for the hundreds of pages that follow, you're fighting over 10%.
Yeah, right.
So what the Google Ad Grant does and paid Google Ads do is that you can get to the top of the search rankings. So what that means is you're just 90% more visible than you were a day ago.
Right.
So that's really the marketing advantage, if you like. And in terms of the grant itself, so Google, it's a tax write-off for Google. And effectively what they do, they offer every eligible entity. So in the United States, it's a 5031C, I think it is.
Yeah.
In Australia, you just have to be an ACNC charity. in the United Kingdom, you had to have what they call charitable status. So again, it's just the legal framework.
Yeah,
churches often have
in the US. It's a 501c3 in the US.
Yeah, so churches often have that for their ministry side, and then have some sort of community outreach. So you can actually get two. Most of the time, I find that a lot of churches have two entities. So really, you get Google comes to you and basically puts $329 on your table and says every single day that you have this grant, you can spend that digital dollar in our Google Ad Grant account. So that's not real money. It's not physical money. It's digital money. But what it does, it allows you basically to put a big old sign in the Google search engine to get discovered.
Right.
Okay. So really there are kind of three primary types of people who you can get discovered by. Again, the Google Ad Grant's got heaps of conditions around it that you have to abide by. And it's only Google search. So only when people are searching that you can use it. It's not display or video. So it's not YouTube. So it's only when people are actually searching. So what Google for Nonprofits say, which is kind of the umbrella part for the ad grant, is it has to align with your mission and vision, the type of search that we're going to support and pay for. So you think about that for the church for a minute. Google is actually helping spread the gospel,
right?
Without even knowing it.
Yeah,
it's like it is amazing.
Like, what are the most or maybe give us like what's the first ad you should run if you start doing this as a church, and then what are the most effective kind of ads that you've seen?
Yeah. So I'm a Google partner. So Google trusts me. I'm a certified Google Ads professional. So I know my stuff, right? Yeah. But I love it in the faith space. And really, if you were to start somewhere, so most people would just want more visitors to their church.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you can do that in lots of different ways. But there are three different types of people. Effectively, and I call them the three pillars of Google advertising. The first pillar is literally people who are searching for a church, but your church is invisible. Now, unless you're First Baptist of San Diego and people are typing for church in San Diego, you're pretty much going to be invisible. You might be on page 4 or 5 or something like that.
Right.
So again, we're not competing with other churches, but hey, we want to get more visible, right? So it really what it is doing is just putting a big spotlight on your digital church sign for that. And there's variations of that kind of what we call bottom of the funnel search. So that's one example. Or there may be searching for a play group that you have in your church. And again, strategically, you're doing a play group because you want those young mums to have conversations about Jesus at some point. And that's your kind of assimilation track, if you like, in there. So again, most churches have this, but it's only attended by those that attend the church. But the heart of the church leadership is that, hey, we want all this community engagement. Right. So again, if you pop in the name of your playgroup into Google search engine, it won't be found. But with the Google Ad Grant, you get found.
And do you encourage churches to run the ads kind of in an area surrounding the physical location of their church, basically?
For that in-person attendance, yes.
Whatever it is, right? Like churches near me, I show up, so I'm running an ad for,
Yeah, so you could figure out, well, where do our existing congregation come from? How far do they drive? What's realistic? And then generally speaking, I work a couple of miles outside of that in terms of what we call where we're going to actually display our ads.
Yeah.
Because, again, we don't want to make decisions for people on their behalf. We want the Holy Spirit to work in their life. We just need to be visible first. So really, in that kind of pillar, it's just about visibility at the bottom of the funnel. The second kind of pillar is really felt needs. So people are searching for help all the time. They're searching, believe it or not, for prayer. Tons of people want prayer. So a lot of churches will have, they'll have a page on their page on their website that really is saying, send us your prayer requests.
Right.
But predominantly, again, it's for their church community. What the Google Ad Grant does, it puts you in front of that person locally or more broadly, who needs prayer. And every time we use that as campaigns, churches are going, our prayer ministry needs you to turn those ads down. Right. We're just getting too many.
Wow.
And it's like, well, no, the point is that you're connecting with those people. It's the next step in that pastoral visit. It's the digital introduction to your church.
Right.
So that's kind of one in that felt needs. Marriage courses, pre-marriage courses, parenting courses, you name it. The straightforward, but couples when they're in trouble, literally it's 90% the wife that is searching for, we need counseling. So again, those churches that are running marriage courses, generally they're not figuring very high in search results because there are secular organizations that are out there actually advertising. So then this brings you back into the game. And because most churches are offering it for a very small cost or no cost. So we get inquiries every single week because we run ads there. And those pages are what are called evergreen pages, where they just live on your church website forever. They're not predicated on, we're only doing this marriage course twice a year. Therefore, it doesn't feel relevant for the person that clicks on the ad. So that we always have a next step. So with all the point of these ads, we always want someone to take a next step, to connect with the pastor, to connect with someone who's the ministry lead, so that you can have a conversation or an email reply. And that's really the point, is the Google Ad Grant is just a vehicle for ministry. What it does, it amplifies your ministry to more people. So whether it's a parenting course.
And if it's not obvious to everybody watching, because we all do it, everyone watching or listening probably does it, but you use Google to search for everything. So people coming into your area, or who've lived there forever, or newly married people, or people facing whatever it is, right? They're eventually, or maybe even sometimes the first thing they do is just go search for help with that thing. Like, I'm looking for a church, I'm looking for marriage counseling, I'm looking for whatever it is, in my area, and like close to me.
Those are what we call very direct types of searches. So that's kind of the emergency, break glass, I need help kind of thing. But people sometimes are often looking for something a little bit softer, just like 7 tips to improve your marriage. And predominantly, again, most of the people that search for that are women. So talk to your women's ministry if you've got one, in terms of the tone of voice, because really you've got to understand your audience, right? So and often it can feel a little bit more like a piece of blog content, and you're just getting in front of that person who's going through that struggle. But then you can offer that advice, and then you can offer a next step, which could be counseling or could be a marriage course.
Yeah,
and that's really kind of that second column. So think generationally, think felt needs. You might be offering recovery courses. So essentially, the whole point of this is that it's aligning with the outreach ministries that your church already has available. We're not creating something new. We're aligning with what you already do. We're just showing it to more people, who don't attend your church. And that's really the heart and the passion and the vision. That we're not saying, hey, start this, because if you're not already running, we don't want you to run it just to do it. It's kind of come alongside it and do it with what you're already doing. And that's really the starting point.
Give me some sense of, you've helped your church, and it sounds like lots of other churches, with running Google ads. What kind of results do you see? Give me some examples of what you've seen as you've helped people get set up and running.
Yeah, sure. So all of those examples that I've just used are real examples. And again, I know at the time that we're recording this, Easter's just around the corner. But again, it may be after Easter when people are watching this, but it's the same for Easter. Tons of churches are invisible at Easter and at Christmas. So that Easter outreach that you want to fill your church sanctuary with, both in person and online, you can create ads for that. And we help tons of churches do that. both locally and online. But again, even with those seasonal times of year, people are not just wanting to come to church, so asking what we call spiritual searcher questions. So in that third pillar is really what we call the spiritual searchers. So at the moment, Easter-wise, people might be Googling, why did Jesus die? Or did he really, was Jesus a real person? Now, often we wait until people are in the church to answer that question. But we've got the opportunity now to answer that question in their search just a little bit earlier on. So I say to preachers that wouldn't it be great if you had your church full of unchurched people, all who came wanting the answer to the same question. So if they all wanted to know, is Jesus real? You get to preach to them for 5 minutes on that apologetic. And you don't have to actually even be there. You can record it once and let the Google Ad Grant do the rest.
Right.
And then you provide a tangible next step to speak with you about that. So effectively what you're doing is that you're providing that timeless opportunity, because people are always searching every hour, every day, to come and come and come.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's
people are searching for everything, right? And churches have, a set of answers that are really important, for types of search. Churches don't have the answer to everything, but they have a set of answers that are really, really important that people need. And just getting more visibility on the main, billboard of the world, Google, it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. And the reality is that, the atheist alliances around the world are completely eligible for the Google Ad Grant as well.
Yeah.
Because they're eligible entities. They are in those searches as well. So really, in terms of those spiritual types of questions, there is a real life competition for attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The strategic advantage that the capital C Church has is that there's only one atheist alliance, but there's thousands of churches who can take advantage of this.
Could you imagine if every church in the world took advantage of the Google Ad Grant?
Oh, mate, it's my heart's desire to be able to set so many up for. Yeah, right? It's like,
because there's, I don't know what the worldwide church number is, but in the U.S., there's over 300,000 churches, right? Yep. So there's a lot just in the U.S. I'm sure worldwide, I don't know, 1 million churches. I have no idea, right? Is it double for the world? 600, 700, 800,000? There's a lot of churches. And going ministries on top of that, like parachurches and ministries and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's millions. It would be great if everybody just took advantage.
And the reality is that, and I say this to everybody that I work with, the Google Ad Grant, it's $329 US a day. It's $10,000 a month. It's $110,000 or $120,000 a year. Sometimes Google gives you a little bit of a bonus at Christmas for some. So sometimes they'll double it. Which is great for when you're doing a lot of Christmas outreach, because we spend all of that money too.
Right.
But the reality is that even with all of that amazing budget, and that there's still thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people who are visiting and checking this sort of stuff out that we can't get in front of.
Right.
So as the capital C Church, we have this strategic opportunity to take an advantage of intersecting someone on their spiritual journey.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I had to wait until the love of my life came into my world, to start asking those sorts of questions and being around a small group. The reality of now is that people are searching for those answers online.
Yeah.
And we just need to, as the capital C Church and the local church, just need to get ourselves in front of them to take advantage of that. And, that's really that, because they're already searching.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of the Google Ad Grant and Google Ads too, is that they're already searching. It's just, what are we going to do?
We're going to do our job.
Ourselves in.
Yeah, we're going to do our job. We're going to spread this podcast all over the planet and get every church. We're going to get every church that we can to listen to it and then call you so you can help them get it set up and know how to run it. Because we're not going to cover that part of it today.
Yeah, and look, I know we're going to do this at the end, but just email me, steve@stevefogg.com.
Yes.
And I'd like any questions someone has about this sort of stuff, or more broadly, I'd just be really happy to answer those questions. The heart behind it was that the global pandemic changed people's habits so significantly, I think, that the broader culture is not going to go back to, and they're going to be digital first,
right?
In terms of how they communicate and how they explore faith and life and form their own worldview. That's the reality from this point onwards, and it's our job to just be in front of them and actually seize the day.
Yeah.
I've heard of churches kind of regressing since things have opened back up and switching off their online presence. I just encourage everybody, now's the time to double down, and now's the time to really take advantage, because the competition is out there. There is an absolute competition for people's attention, for shaping people's worldviews and mindsets. And let me tell you, people are there actively trying to do that. So the gospel has to be presented as an alternative out there.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I want to be respectful of time. Tell us one more time where people can go to connect with you, because I encourage everyone listening, absolutely go hit up Steve to talk more about the Google Ad Grant.
Yeah, like I said, you can email me, steve@stevefogg.com. I just answer emails from all over the world. Love doing that.
And you have
no matter if you're
on your website too. I know you have some stuff around Facebook, but you probably have some.
Yeah.
So people should grab that too.
Yeah, Steve@stevefogg, stevefogg.com. That's my blog, where I generally write about social media and outreach and all that sort of stuff. And that's probably a little bit less frequent these days because I'm so busy actually doing the stuff these days. But I love it, Frank, honestly. It's just that I actually had this vision about 5 years ago where we were still probably one of the only churches in Australia doing online ministry versus just streaming. So a few more would come online and they were streaming their services, but they weren't engaging with people. And I just remember sitting in my lounge room going, and it's almost like God dropped this thought into my head. And he said, imagine helping churches all the way around the world share the gospel online.
Right.
What we're doing here, this little thing here, which I thought was a big thing at the time, but realizing how little it is. Imagine if we could help hundreds of churches around the world do digital better.
Right.
And that's kind of, with the last year or so, it's really started to come into fruition in terms of just helping churches leverage digital marketing to reach more people online, so that they can come along to a service or check out faith.
Yeah.
And that's really the heart behind why I do what I do.
I love it.
And why I talk to you and we get to hang out together.
Oh, I mean, I geek out on this stuff and we could keep talking for a long time, but 3 of the last interviews, 3 of the last, not too many, maybe 3 of the last 5 or 10 at most have been on kind of church marketing, like digital marketing, Google Ads, Facebook, church online. I mean, it's such an opportunity for churches, and the pandemic did a lot to push us in the right direction, but still, we're infants, right? The church at large at doing digital really well. And guys like you and Jay and others who are out there kind of pioneering it and helping the church do it well is awesome. So everyone go to stevefogg.com, hit him up, email him, and are you on socials at all? Twitter, YouTube?
Yeah,
all the things.
Yeah, it's all my name: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Instagram, you'll probably just see more sad cycling photos of sunrises and coffee. Pretty much, that's all I post on Instagram. I'm now on TikTok. In fact, I'm experimenting with TikTok. It may not be around, but
we'll do that one next.
I'm actually
just around. Yeah, if it sticks around in like 6 months, we'll do another episode and we'll talk TikTok for churches. It'll be a great one.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Love it, man. Well, guys, thanks for joining us. Steve, thank you for your time today. It's been a blast. And if you're listening to this thing, make sure you share it. Tell all the churches out there to go talk to Steve, learn about the Google Ad Grant, and just generally learn about kind of online marketing to help the church. And we'll catch you next week on another episode of Modern Church Leader. Thanks, guys.